Hello and welcome to Tiny Desk Knitting with Emma. Today I will be doing my second installment of the Brae Cardigan workshop, I guess. Brae is a V-neck cardigan. It comes from this book, The Art of Fair Isle Knitting, History, Technique, Color, and Palettes by Anne Feidelson, which is a must-have book if you're interested in Fair Isle, especially for its pattern collection at the end and the long chapter on color and how color works. So this book doesn't have graphs in it, like a separate graph section. It just has the actual patterns. So this is Brae. It's very 90s, which is fine. You can't tell in this photo as well. It's a V-neck cardigan, obviously, but it's quite short, and I did not make mine short. I lengthened it quite substantially. I lengthened the body from like 9 inches to 15 inches. So today, in my first installment, I like do this thing where I start a sentence and then I like completely ignore the sentence that I started and I go into something else. So I'm sorry about that. I am distracted all the time by everything. In the first installment, I showed you just like a blank body of Brae. I didn't show, it didn't have any shaping on it yet. It was just like, this is the body and this is kind of what you do for the first part of the body. So today, this is probably going to be a long video in several sort of sections. I will talk about how the schematic works. I will talk about like the shaping and stuff and how you gonna separate for sleeves, how to cast on steeks over that, how to decrease for the V-neck, how to like actually felt the steeks so you secure them, how to graft the shoulders, how to put the back neck stitches on hold so that you can later pick up the neckline, and all that fun stuff. So it's going to be a lot, and I'm going to actually demonstrate several techniques. I will flip the camera so you can see. This is a low budget production. This is a zero budget production, I should say. So the angles might not be super great. I have a tripod which is mostly broken because children constantly are playing with it and breaking it, which is fine. I actually also have broken it more than once. Like, it's not just them. But anyway, so I'm going to show you what it looks like right now. So the body is done. You can see that it's shaped to be a V-neck, which means there's been decreases here. V-necks are funny because obviously they split like this, like a V, but when you're making a V-neck in the round, it's gonna look like straight, and then it's gonna start to go in like that because you're doing your decreases along a steek, and so it will point in until you cut your steek open, and then all of a sudden it'll be like, which is kind of fun. So that's cool. Yeah, awesome. Okay, so yeah, what I'm going to be doing today is securing these arm sky steeks. There's one on either side, showing you how to do that. Then I will be grafting the shoulders together, and I will be putting the back neck stitches on hold, and I'll show you what you need to do for that. I'm not going to cut this steek open. This steek in the front, so you can see that I actually did the body, like I did like most of the body, and then I blocked it, and before I blocked it I secured the steek on the inside by needle felting. So you can see here it's all fuzzy because I needle felted it. I just cut the ends off in the middle, in there. I just cut the ends, I trimmed them, and then I needle felted the steek and nothing came out. So that's great. You don't even have to secure it. If you like watch Hazel Tyndall's videos, she doesn't secure steeks, she just trims the ends and then that's it. And lots of other people will tell you you don't have to secure your steeks if you don't want to. I like to do it with a needle felting needle. It just makes me feel a little more secure. So you can see how in the top of it, I'm gonna do it this way, I haven't trimmed those ends. So look at all those ends that I don't have to weave in because it's on a steek, so I can just trim them. Unfortunately, you do have to weave in the ends on your sleeves because there's no steeks there. Okay, so I'm gonna flip the camera now, and I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna do before I do it. Oh, I got caught. Got my Coconets stitch stoppers. They do not sponsor me. I just love Coconets stitch stoppers a lot. I always use them so that my stitches don't fall off. So yeah, I'm gonna bind off this front steek, or cast off this front steek for the top of the cardigan. Then I'm gonna knit across and cast off the arm sky steeks as I go. And as I do that, I'm gonna use locking stitch markers to indicate how many stitches I'm gonna graft together for the armholes, or the shoulders here. And then as I go, I'm gonna knit across the back stitches and then put that group of stitches on a piece of waste yarn. Got my waste yarn and needle here. Then I'm gonna continue knitting around, bind off or cast off, whatever word you want. I'm gonna cast off the other arm sky steek, go around, cast off the rest of the front of the steek, and then I will be all set with that for I can graft. I'm gonna turn it inside out and do a 3 needle bind off on the shoulder seams. So that's gonna be a fun journey. Oh, and actually before I graft, I am going to secure the sleeve arm sky steeks, because it's really hard to get this this is the felting pad. You need to put this down so that you can needle felt on top of something. You got to put this down inside the piece, the knitted piece, and if the shoulders are already grafted, it's really hard to get it in there for the needle felting. And I have made that mistake before, and I have since corrected every time I've done it. So that's fun. Okay, yeah, let's get started. Okay, so here we go. There's a helicopter outside. Before I moved to Washington, I've seen helicopters before, but there's so many helicopters here. It's kind of insane. It's always fun to think, wow, maybe the president's in that. But apparently the president's only in it if there's 2 helicopters, because then you don't know which one he's in. So that's a fun fact I also learned living here. Okay, so a couple of things. Before I do that, I should figure out how I'm going to do this. Okay, so my steeks are here. I've got some markers in here for various pattern indication reasons, because you're doing decreases and you put a bunch of stitches on hold for your arm sky, and then all of a sudden, yeah, it gets a little bit annoying. Actually, you know what I'm going to do first? I'm going to needle felt first, because I don't want to be needle felting and like trying to get all these stitches onto a needle and all that garbage. While I'm grafting, I'm ranting right now. Grafting is really annoying because you need a lot of needles, and so I'd rather deal with the felting before I deal with putting the stitches on a bunch of needles and all that. So here we go. I'm putting the felting board into here, and you can see right now this is still wide enough because I have not grafted these shoulders that I can fit it properly. There's just a spare needle here which I'm going to use for grafting later. Okay, so this is my felting pad and this is my needle felting tool. This guy, there's the camera, it's got 3 needles. You can see them, and they are barbed needles. If you've never seen a needle felting tool, let's see if we can focus on it. Yeah, sort of. They're basically needles with tiny barbs on them. And so you take this and you're gonna stick it repeatedly into this wool to make it felt together on the inside. So that's why it looked all fuzzy when I showed you the inside of the front steek. So this, yeah, you just kind of poke it a bunch of times all down the steek, move your way down. It's really fuzzy. One of the things I do when I'm doing steeks, and this is a technique I learned, I can't remember who talked about this, but it's really smart, is to purl the first and last stitches of your steek bridge. And there's 2 good reasons for this. Number 1, I think it helps your steek stitches actually lie more flat on the inside of your piece. It just makes them fold more easily because there's like a hinge that they can fold on because there's a knit stitch on the inside. And number 2, it makes it really easy to tell where you're supposed to pick up the stitches along the side of the steek. And this is useful for both Fair Isle work because sometimes it's just hard to see where the steek is in the pattern, and it's most useful for like a cardigan that you're making with like, it's maybe like a yoke cardigan or something that has like a lot of solid color, but you're still gonna cut it up the middle, but you don't have this bridge in contrasting colors to like see where the edge of the steek is. So you just have to like pick it up in, you know, in the same line, and it's really easy, especially if the yarn is a dark color, to like miss that line. So if you have a pearl bridge all down your steek, it's really great because you can always know which stitch you're supposed to pick up because it's the one on the other side of the pearl stitch. So I do it for pattern, even though you've got, it's like an obvious where your steek is because you're doing the ladder or a checkerboard. But it's actually even more useful if you're doing something in a solid color that you're then gonna cut open. I don't think I used the word steek properly in that sentence. Steek is like not a traditional word. If you've like seen videos from Shetlanders like Hazel Tyndall and other folks, but Hazel Tyndall does a lot of instructional videos and she's awesome. They'll tell you that steek is like not a traditional word in the Shetland dialect. It just like, in terms of knitting, it just means like bridge. So this is your bridge, that's the steek. Okay, so it's also, this is really fun. You kind of have to peel it away from the, from the thing. Okay, so that's one of those. I'm gonna shut it off and do the other one and then come back here so that I'm not wasting a ton of your time rambling. Yeah, that's how we needle felt a steek bridge. Okay, so I've now secured my steeks. I'm glad I did this now. And in case you're wondering, this again, it's really fuzzy inside. You want it to be fuzzy. You don't want them to come out. I also pick up my steek, the stitches around my steek for my sleeve before I cut the steek open, just so it is not, you're not pulling on the stitches. You're not really pulling on them because you're not picking them up like that. You're just kind of knitting through them. But it's just generally a little safer to, I think, in my opinion, to pick them up before you cut them open because you're not going to pull on a stitch that you have cut, you know, by accident or anything. So that's the steek bridges. And again, you want to secure your steek if you choose to secure your steek before you graft the shoulders, if you're needle felting, because it's too hard to get this big foam thing into a sweater that you've already sewed up the shoulders of. And before I go on from this, the needle felting tool is incredibly sharp. I live with children, so I'm always aware of like things that they can get into and use to hurt themselves. So if you have kids, keep this away from your children. Okay, so right now I'm gonna talk you through what I'm gonna do in this row here. I'm gonna knit across the 44 front stitches. I'm gonna cast off all the 7 stitches of the steek bridge here, the sleeve steek bridge. I'm gonna knit across I've got my locking stitch markers to indicate the first 44 stitches of the back and the last 44 stitches of the back, which I will then use. I think that's 44. Yeah, that would be. I was just thinking of the stitch markers. And so the reason it's 44 is because that's how many stitches I have left on each front half. So I decreased a bunch of stitches at the, here's me, at the V-neck here. And so I'm going to keep all the rest of those stitches like in between those 2 sets of 44. I'm going to keep those on a piece of waste yarn. So I'm going to knit across to the first steek bridge, taking out all markers as I go. So I should probably get my little marker tan out. I'm going to cast off the steek. I'm going to knit across those first 44 stitches of the back. I'm going to knit across this section of back stitches, and then I'm going to go back and put all those stitches on hold on a spare piece of waste yarn here. Knit across these 44 stitches, cast off this steek, and finish the round casting off all these last steek stitches here. Then I'm going to graft the shoulders, but that is another ball game. So take off my stoppers. Before I get too far into this, I will let you know that I knit combination style, which is through the back loops. You probably won't be able to see the actual knitting very well from this angle, but in case you're wondering why my hands look strange, that's why. So if you've never heard of combination knitting, which most people have not, it is really comfortable. It's a style of knitting most popular in Eastern Europe. My mother taught me how to knit. her mother is Canadian Ukrainian, so her parents were from Ukraine. She was born in Canada, in Alberta, and so she was taught to knit in this style. So there's the casted off the stitches for the front of the steek, the top of that steek. So my mom learned how to knit that style, and she taught me that style. They both wrap the yarn around their finger. I don't do that. I don't find it comfortable. And because I don't wrap the yarn, I kind of hold it between my fingers. My knitting is looser, so that's fun. I usually have to go down a needle size, sometimes 2 needle sizes when I am knitting. So yeah, to get my proper gauge. And I do sometimes have a little bit of trouble with getting my correct vertical gauge, but that's a lot less big of a deal than horizontal gauge if you're knitting a garment, because you can just knit it shorter or longer as needed, and not worry too much. And while I'm doing this, I will discuss quickly the fact that there were not enough motifs in the pattern for me because I lengthened the pattern so much. And so I created the last 3 motifs, 1, 2, and 3, based on the height of the pattern, these pattern sections, which this is 13 high, I think, and this is 5 high. And I kept these little crosses and stuff just stable. And that made me able to lengthen it. I used just the usual book that I use, which is Sheila McGregor's complete traditional book of fair isle knitting, complete book of traditional fair isle knitting. You can use any book you want, but yeah, I had to make sure that I was careful when I was doing my stitch counts to make them all symmetrical. Okay, so there's that. So I've cast off this steek bridge here. So now I'm going to knit across the first, I did take that out, right? Yeah, the stitch marker. I'm going to knit across the first 44 stitches at the back. What else was I going to say about this? I can't remember. Oh, when I knit the sleeves, I'm going to have to measure how long my sleeve needs to be by trying on the piece, or yeah, which means I'm going to have to probably cut open the steeks, otherwise my head won't fit. Or maybe I'll just guesstimate that it needs to be about 19 inches because it's for me. Maybe 18 inches, and then I'm going to measure on the body how long, like what row would give me got me to 18 inches, and then I'll start there at that whatever that row is, and then I'll knit downwards in the pattern from there, so that the body and sleeves end on the same part of the band here, same band. So I've got sort of symmetrical from the bottom up. It looks like the body and sleeves started in with the same pattern, which they would have, although you're knitting in the direction of bottom up for the body and then top down for the sleeve. That's just the way we construct these cardigans. Okay, so I'm gonna leave this marker in, this locking marker here, and continue to knit across the back, and then go back, and once I get to the second locking marker, and put all those stitches on my waist yarn here. I do recommend, especially if you're doing like an all over, it's harder with an all over because all your rows have patterns. But this is like I think that's called, like when you say all over, I assume that means like a completely interlocking pattern. Like this pattern I would call banded, but I'm not from Shetland, and so they might have different words. Like all over might just mean all of it is patterned, which this is, except for there's a lot of rest rows, but for the most part the whole garment is patterned rather than just like a plain knit body and then a yoke of fair isle. So yeah. But I much prefer to do all of this work on just a single color row because it makes everything just go faster, and there's not, like little floats that you could catch in things, which just makes everything kind of harder, especially if you're doing Kitchener stitch grafting, which I don't tend to do on shoulders, but I would do on like a scarf or something. So if I'm doing like a cowl or something, like a tube, I try to do the last rows just plain knit so that it's easier. Okay, so I'm gonna put all of these last stitches here on waste yarn. I have to go in the opposite direction of regular knitting, which is a little hard here. I'm gonna keep those on waste yarn until I'm ready to knit the neckline. And on a V-neck cardigan, you can actually knit the neckline all the way around without doing like the neck first and then picking up the band, because it's shaped in a way that that allows for you to just do it seamlessly, which is fun because you do it all in one, but it's also very tedious because there are a lot of stitches. Wow, this is like, I know it's because I'm leading here with my left hand, but it just makes it really hard. Oh no, I'm getting into a rhythm. I hope there's not a lot of light. I didn't bring my lamp over because oftentimes when I bring the lamp over, the video itself ends up being a lot brighter than I think it will be, and so the lamp just kind of washes it out. So hopefully that happens today. It's sunny outside, but the window's up there because I'm in the basement here in the kids' playroom, which you can probably tell from the body systems on the wall. There's our felt stomach, felt heart. Well, you can't see those. There's a felt brain too, and then there's the piano there. If I've never mentioned it before, I used to be a musicologist. I mean, I did a graduate degree in musicology, and I am a keyboard player, sort of. So I teach the kids piano, and that's fun. I really like teaching piano to kids. I think it's really fun. Okay, so that's those stitches. Pull a needle through. I'm always afraid that it's gonna like come out of the eye of the needle and I'm just gonna be screwed. But that never really happens because it kind of traps itself. Okay, so this is on waste yarn. I'm just gonna tie this off because I am gonna pick up these live stitches later again when I do my my neckband. Okay, I'm actually gonna leave this needle here because I'm gonna graft the shoulders. So I'm just gonna start with a much longer version of this size of needle. I'm knitting this on a 24-inch size 2. This is a 40-inch size 2. I will be using this needle for the sleeves in magic loop style, but I'm also gonna use this for grafting because I'm gonna need to do a 3-needle bind off. And hopefully I've got a cable needle in there that I can actually use for the 3rd needle. That's the right size. I'm sure I do. But until then, let's do this. Knit across the rest of the body here. I'm actually going to stop it here because all I'm doing here is the same thing I did on the other side, which is knitting across the back shoulder stitches, casting off the arm sky steek, and then knitting across the front shoulder stitches. So I will turn this off and come back when I'm ready to graft. So I hope this was useful and you learned something and more to come. Okay, so here's what I've got now. Oops, I'm gonna keep those over here. I've got, and I hate the sound of these like needles clacking all around, but that's just what happens. We've got several sets. Okay, so over here I have this set of shoulder seams that I'm going to graft together with this casted off arm sky steek, and on this is the one I'm going to do first, which is the one on the longer needle currently. So I've got stitch stoppers on this side to keep them steady here, and I'm going to flip the whole thing inside out to do my 3-needle bind off. Yeah, you want to do 3-needle bind offs if possible from the outside, or from the inside out, because it's not a neat edge. It's like it creates a ridge. So there we go. I'm gonna do this magic loop style. It's easy to find the halfway point because I've got those steek stitches casted off. So here's what I've got. I've got 2 parallel sets of 44 stitches each. A 3-needle bind off. You can definitely find like better videos of specifically a 3-needle bind off if you want to do that. And like here, I'm not gonna actually do the whole entire thing because that would take literally forever and you get super bored. There's a cable needle that's small enough. So I'm gonna explain the gist of this and then I'll turn it off while I do the most of the work just because it's boring. And then I'll turn it back on at the end and show you what it looks like or how to finish it or, you know, whatever. Okay, so I've got my parallel stitches here. I've got all that going. I gotta get the yarn. So there's two basic steps to the 3-needle bind off. First, you actually have to knit the 2 sets of stitches together. So you go through I knit through the back loops, which makes this actually a lot easier because it's hard to get through the front loops of 2 separate stitches on 2 parallel needles. And you have to be careful here because you don't want to lose any stitches because you're grafting an exactly equal number on both sides. So you're going to knit 2 stitches and then bind off as usual on that needle, on the 3rd needle. So use the 3rd needle, knit a stitch, and then cast off that stitch. Use the 3rd needle. Now you don't want to do this too tightly because then you'll have really tight shoulder seams. You don't want that. One thing I'm going to quickly talk about here is that there's no extra neck shaping. This pattern actually called for higher shoulders. It said you could make a steek at the back of the neck, like put the middle, basically what I put on this waist yarn. They say you could basically put those on hold and do a steek at the back to make the shoulders higher. I did not do that. I might regret it when I put it on, but whatever. The other thing about a V-neck cardigan is that you can't just cut, because there's no neck steek, like you just have one big steek up the front and you do the shaping alongside the V-neck, which automatically makes the back of the neck higher. You are not able to try it on until you basically have to cut all your steeks open, steek bridges open in order to try it on. And I don't really want to do that until I'm like ready to work on my sleeves. So it's going to be a little bit of a crapshoot. So once I'm like ready to do the bands, I might even not even cut it open until I've done the bands. I've picked up for the bands at least, and then I can cut it open. So that's going to be a crapshoot for me. Try it on, it might just not fit at all. That'll be fun. It's a lot of hours of work. Oops. Let's see. Okay, I'm actually going to turn this off after I grab that stitch so that I'm not boring you to tears with my 3-needle bind off. But there's my ridge on the inside, which you can't totally see. I'll just show this when I'm done. Okay, so right now, finished grafting the shoulder seams. I'm gonna put the needles away. And I've got this piece, so it's still inside out. There you can see all those ends I'm gonna end up trimming later. And you can see that it's clean on this. There we go. Backwards. There, it's nice and clean. Sometimes there's ends you have to weave in, you know, in places like this where the skein ends. So I'll be, you know, having to do that for finishing. There's a few more here. But basically this is the shape. It looks like a vest. I'm gonna turn it out right side out. You can see what it looks like. Okay, nice. I like it. So this is the back of the neck, which has got stitches on hold here. There's 2. Oops. Here we go. So again, I'm not going to cut these right now because I'd like to at least get the sleeves going before I cut. But I am going to talk a bit about the schematic of this. And it looks, sorry, it's my AirPods. I fell over. It sits a little funny. I'm hoping that it means that, you know, the back of the neck is higher and it sits properly, although it might fall back a bit on my body when I'm wearing it. Okay, and I have a set of notes about this, although I'm not sure if it says anything other than discuss schematics. Okay, yeah, so how does it work? How does it look? How shaping is different from a crew neck cardigan. Okay, so shaping works. Okay, so grafting is complete. I've turned it right side out. You can see that there are these kind of seam things. Looks like that. That's what a 3-needle bind off looks like from the outside or the right side. So you always want a 3-needle bind off from an inside unless you're willing to put up with the ridge that it creates, which looks like a knit stitch. But this is what it looks like. It's nice, and I mean, it just looks like I sewed up 2 shoulders, which is fine. So I'm going to talk about schematics. So I've got this thing hanging off here for the back of the neck, so it doesn't actually go flat. And this is my piece so far. So it's like a vest. So basically what we've got is we have flat back, no shaping. We've got a front with shaping. You can, that's why it won't be flat here. So there's V-neck shaping from about here up. Seam at the body until you're ready to split for your armholes. Mine is about 15 inches long. And then you put some stitches on hold for the armhole, so you can see that. Usually I just put like 7 stitches on hold. This pattern actually asked me to put 23, 25 stitches on hold, which was surprising to me. It's not usually that much. Usually if it's that much, it means you've increased for an underarm gusset, and then you're going to decrease that gusset later. So you get kind of a diamond shape here, like out and then in on the sleeve. So you decrease more steadily in that spot, and then you decrease for the sleeve. So you do that, you do it flat, you put some stitches on hold. This sweater has minimal armhole shaping. It's basically a drop shoulder piece. The Mayanas cardigan that I did, which you can see in episode 6, that had much more shaping here. And I didn't have short rows on the sleeves because I didn't knit them flat, or I didn't knit them separately. I knit them down from the sleeve steek bridges. But that worked out fine. It just like was a little tight. The bodice was a little tight, so I wanted to do a more dropped shoulder sort of scenario for this. And then once I finished the sleeve shaping, that's when I started the V-neck. So I knew that I needed to get to 44 stitches on each front, and the pattern said to decrease on either side of the middle steek, like the front steek bridge, every 3rd row. So I did that a few times, and I was like, that's gonna be way too big. Like, I'm just gonna have to make that really tall, and then the armhole's gonna be way too big. So I did every other row, which ended up perfect. I have exactly the right height for an arm sky, plus these 25 stitches, which is like 3 inches for my extra for my sleeve that I'm gonna need. And then, yeah, once you get to the top of that, you don't have to do the thing where you put a bunch of stitches on hold here in the front and then continue shaping around the back of the neck, because this is not a crew neck cardigan. That you only need to do that on a crew neck cardigan to make the back of the neck higher. This is a V-neck, the back of the neck is automatically higher. That's just how it works. So I have a measuring tape here, so I can measure all of these. This is from Neighborhood Fiber Co. in Baltimore. I love their stuff. Very cute. So what was I gonna do? I was gonna measure the body before the arm split. So on my cardigan, that is 15 inches almost exactly. I don't have a long corrugated ribbing section, so again, I needed to add some length to the body, and that meant creating new motifs. I could have just used the first motif, but as you can see here, all of these bands are different. All of the small bands and the bigger bands, all of them are different. So I actually created this one, and this one using the same sort of formula. And I wanted the height of the bands to be the same, and I wanted the width to be, a multiple of 8. And that worked out. Okay, my top to, this is about 8 inches from the arm sky split to the top of the shoulder. So my sleeves are probably gonna be a little baggy, so I'll probably want to be either not picking up as many stitches around the sleeve steek or doing fewer or more decreases or something. Although on my Mayanas cardigan, I made the sleeves like they were pretty tight, and it fits great. It's sort of like a cropped fitted jacket, but this is a little more oversized, so I think I might not decrease on the sleeves a whole lot and just keep it like that. Okay. Yep. All this neck closure, how many to graft together? I am grafting all front stitches to equal number of back stitches. And the stitches that remain on back of neck will be used in collar, place on hold. I did that. I've already done that. So that's easy. That's on the back here. Yeah, so the next thing I'm gonna end up doing on this video is, or the next video is gonna be about picking up stitches along the arm sky for the steek. I'm probably gonna film that like now. I just won't release the video until it'll be a separate video where I discuss sleeves in more detail. So yeah, this has been a lot. I did a lot of stuff on this cardigan. I was trying to get it done on a day where I could film so that I could properly do all of this. And I'm glad that I did, because it's nice to have this out of the way so that I can just keep working on the sleeves and get this done. So I will be doing another series of videos on how to basically do the same thing but with a crew neck cardigan. I'm working on a cardigan called Yell by Marie Wallen, which you may have seen. It's more like a jacket, and it's not shaped at all. At the back, you just cut it open and it kind of falls back and the fronts come up because it's not shaped on the back of the neck, and it's a beautiful jacket. But I'm not knitting it in that style. I'm knitting it just like my NS, which is just a plain round necked cardigan, designed by Jamieson's of Shetland, somebody named Violet McQuaid for Jamieson's of Shetland. And I've knit that sweater, and I like the shaping, but this one's going to be slightly bigger. It's not going to be quite as fitted. So that one's in progress. I just haven't gotten to the armhole shaping, so I haven't filmed a video about it yet, but that's the next one. And I'm knitting it in Jamieson and Smith Heritage, which is a worsted spun 4-ply. It's really beautiful. I knit the big bottom colorful banded Knit Picks palette because I had a big stash, and then I didn't want to use a woolen spun yarn for the top because Knit Picks palette is worsted spun, so I chose Jamieson and Smith Shetland Heritage, and I'm really enjoying knitting with that too. So that's Brae body. Maybe I'll just make it a vest. I've never made a vest, but I am gonna make the V-sick vest from Fair Isle Weekend by MJ Mucklestone at some point, which is with DK weight yarn. So that should go pretty fast, but I think essentially it's basically like this because it's a V-neck vest. So it's basically this, and then you just cut your steeks open, and you're good to go and do your finishing. Okay, so that's all for Brae today. It's definitely like, the right length and stuff. You can kind of hold it up and see. That's wide enough. It's quite a bit wider than my NS, I think. Again, maybe I should just cut the fronts open and see if it fits. Not gonna do that right now, but I'm gonna do it at some point. Anyway, I think that's all. Yeah, that should be it. I hope that this has been useful, and if you couldn't see properly, please do look up the techniques. Like Very Pink Knits has really good tutorials with like proper lighting. I just wanted to sort of go through and explain how, like, the process of finishing the top of a cardigan like this, like the steps and maybe the order in which you should perform the steps. I'm a big advocate of needle felting steeks. I learned that from Anne and Kay from Modern Daily Knitting. About this time last year, they had a blog post about it, and I was like, wow, that is totally brilliant. It doesn't really work with like superwashed yarn. I mean, maybe it would work. I wouldn't try it because I'd be afraid that things would get pulled and not felt properly. But with like woolen spun yarn or kind of like more rustic worsted spun yarn, it totally works because the fibers want to connect in those ways. You're not taking fibers that are all super smooth and treated. I've never done steeks any other way. Never done the crochet chain because I hate using a crochet hook. Never done a sewing, like actually sewn with a sewing machine because don't have one. And also I don't really understand the physics of that, like taking this and like trying to machine sew something like just up the inside. I feel like that would, like, this is all, you'd have to secure the steek before you grafted the armholes. I don't know, it seems like a lot of work, and I wouldn't trust myself with that either. So needle felting, really secure, or don't secure your steek at all with Shetland wool. It's gonna be fine. It won't unravel. And until next time, this has been Tiny Desk Knitting with Emma.